do we do when this is all broken already? You know, there's no gluing it back together.
Yeah, that's probably. I think that's the most electorally effective case for him, but I don't think you can make it anymore. And ultimately, I think that's why he is doomed in 2020.
Do you think Donald Trump is doomed in 2020?
Yep, I think so. He may be.
I don't know, dude. I think, like Mark Twain said, the reports of my death are slightly exaggerated.
Well, I think it's definitely it's certainly possible he could win. That's for sure.
If you listen to the Republican,
I don't think he's gonna.
If you listen to the Republican party machine, they've registered millions of voters who've never voted before. Okay, and I don't know if you can poll those people. That's a little difficult, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got a shift, a palpable shift. And that's why I was talking about class rather than race. You've got young black men in greater numbers gravitating toward Donald Trump.
And yeah, that's interesting. What makes you like? Do you think that's a push or a pull by Donald Trump or a push away from the Democratic Party?
I think it's both. I think what we're talking about are young, more educated black men who are thinking, I don't get anything out of the Democrat Party. I mean, I don't want to be a victim. I don't feel like I'm a victim. I'm in control of my financial destiny, my family destiny. I don't want to be pigeonholed in a way that doesn't characterize me. And I don't know if it's for lack of a better choice, although I think Donald Trump is a fairly attractive choice. You know, he's a wealthy guy, speaks his mind, isn't afraid to talk about race. He's kind of breaks through a wall that had been established, and I think that Democrats had just imagined would always be there. And you can tell just in some of the things, when Joe Biden, it actually offends me when I'm a white guy. It offends me when Joe Biden says, if you don't vote for me, then you ain't black. I mean, just think about how sweeping a generalization that is. And I don't think that any ethnicity, I don't think that any group or race is monolithic like that. People have their own minds. I don't
agree with all the things you said there, but I definitely think that there's some things that if he wanted, I think if it was like probably a little bit smarter, he could have a like super, super significant. If he was like more sympathetic to Black Lives, I think if he was more sympathetic to Black Lives Matter and like played up his pardoning of Alice Johnson, like if he kind of just said we support like Black Lives Matter, but we don't support kind of like the Biden line on what he says, like we don't support any violence, but we like support the right to protest and. We support Alex. Look what I did for Alice Johnson and the First Step Act and all this other stuff, and also saying that what have the Democrats done for you? Like they haven't put you in these good situations. That's why the Democrats are so continuously having to boost their turnout in places like the African American parts of Philadelphia and those big cities where they need people to desperately turn out. I think he could have a huge chunk of the black vote if he wanted.
I think he's accomplishing a big chunk of that without having to embrace the capital letters BLM. I think that to have done that, listen, the Black Lives Matter movement is brilliant branding. Okay, you cannot say. To say Black Lives Matter is automatically associated with basically a neo-Marxist group. And yet the statement in and of itself is such a truism, right? So it's the lowercase Black Lives Matter. I think everybody is on board with that. I mean, you have to be a psycho lunatic to be on board with that, right? Uh, that's why it's brilliant. Uh, kind of, it kind of put pressure uh, on Republicans to avoid it because if all that would get reported is you said Black Lives Matter, not that you said, that in every case, a black person's life matters. Do you know what I mean? That's too big a concept. You have to parse too many thoughts in that. But I think that most Republicans have that sentiment anyway, the small BLM rather than the large BLM. And hopefully that's going to be enough. When you do have someone like Alice Johnson, who is clearly like a perfect choice for a pardon, right?
Yeah.
And then he just pardoned some other young guy the other day. It's not lost. I don't think it's lost in the black community, and I think that's evidenced by enough black celebrities who are saying, "Listen, I've had enough of this. I just want to work with whoever gets it done." And so there you've got 50 Cent and Ice Cube, and there are a handful of people who are making their decision not on party but on substance. We got to be honest. Whether it's marketing or not, Donald Trump has really gone after the black vote in very clever ways.
Yeah, I think with Biden there, it makes it very, very easy because he is such a representative of the status quo, and that has just been not good for a lot of those people. So, let's now, before we wrap up here, I do want to go through some major other things to watch for tonight. At 8 p.m., you're going to want to take a look, really. These are the two things you want. If Biden's doing well, if Biden still holds a comfortable lead in Florida after the early votes arrive in the Panhandle, the president's chances are on life support. Of course, the needle will probably have told you this already, referring to his election needles in the New York Times. So we have to. Those have already been subject to some great controversy before. We'll see how they do tonight. But if Trump has already fought Biden down to a draw in Florida, this one could go down to a wire, a precondition for a national Trump victory. At this point, victory in Florida would come down to straggling Election Day vote, Democratic ballots in Miami, Dade, and Broward versus a whole lot of Republican vote elsewhere in the state. Made in New Hampshire, both these states should count all their ballots in no particular order. So that's... now we turn to Pennsylvania, which really will be painful. The state will be counting in-person Election Day ballots on election night because state law prohibits Election Day administrators from opening mail, even opening mail ballots until Election Day. So they can't count them at least until Election Day. So as you said earlier, that means we're going to be here for a long time. In the final Times Siena survey, Biden had a 75-19 lead among voters who had requested an absentee ballot and an 80-13 lead among those who had returned one. Trump could easily lead all throughout the night, even if he's on track for a decisive loss, because, again, none of those Biden votes will come through until after Election Day, which could be very decisive in the election for this state. So in Texas, the early votes from metropolitan areas will arrive quickly, which will give Biden appear to give him a large lead. Then we'll have to see whether Trump can catch up with the rural and Election Day votes on that. Texas could take a while to count its votes, but it ought to be mostly finished on election night. That's more than we can say, actually, for a lot of states. At 9 p.m. Eastern, if Biden is still winning outright, leading or outright victorious in North Carolina and Florida, then things will look very good for him. We also have to have some counties, pretty good idea of Ohio, and our first clear look at what's happening in the Midwest. And if you can compare that to Hillary, and if he's doing better than Hillary there, he is in very good shape. If Trump's going to win, he will need to be favored strongly in North Carolina and Florida at this point. And he'll also need to show some surprising strength in the first counties to wrap up the northern battlegrounds. All right. David, thank you so much for joining us today. That is all the time that we have. We'll let you Go
Yeah,
enjoy
yes,
the rest of your
I would-
election day. Thank you so
I would
much for
like to
joining us.
talk a little bit about Minnesota.
Oh, you want to talk about him in Minnesota? All right.
I think.
Give us a preview
Why would Joe Biden go to Minnesota? Just tell me that.
Yeah, that's going to be hit. Those if two states could be absolutely mind blowing, it is Minnesota and Nevada.
Yep.
Yeah, because you got Minnesota and Nevada. That's what we'll leave you with. Before we come on at 8 tonight, the thing to watch is going to be Minnesota and Nevada, just because in Nevada there's a lot of Hispanic vote, which Biden has been struggling with lately, and some polls have come out incredibly close on that front. And, of course, the working class vote in Minnesota with the miners up there who went for Trump last time in a big way. So see if we can hold that off. But Minnesota's been a blue state for a long time. So if Trump pulls that off, it will be a huge coup.
So if it's so blue, why would he spend the last few days of the campaign shoring up Minnesota? I think there's a story to tell in there.
All right, we'll see if you're right. David, thank you so much for coming on. That concludes our second hour. We'll be back at 8 tonight for the results. We'll see you then.